What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video in the 2024 mentorship. Today's video is going to be focused on fair value gaps, or FVG for short. And basically we're just going to be going over what exactly that is, how I apply it to my strategy, how to spot it, examples of that. I want to go over the different types, and I want to start off with literally what is a FVG. So FVG stands for fair value gap, which is what this video is going to be about. And basically this is one of the most crucial parts of my strategy. Honestly, I use this every single day. All of my entries are literally based off of a fair value gap. It's literally like when I learned about this was just like a light bulb moment for me, and I hope this will be like that for you guys, because it's just like once you see it, you can't unsee it. You'll see it everywhere. You'll notice what price does when it reacts to it, how price reacts to it, where it reacts to it, which ones are more valid than others. There's different types. I'll get into all of that in this video. I want to make another part 2 because I think that's just so important that I need to make a part 2 on this video. But let's get right into it. So a fair value gap is basically when price moves, when price has an expansion move, right? Okay, let me just get rid of this for a second. When price moves up, right, or down, but for now we're going to be focusing on bullish movement, right? It has an impulse, right? Impulse move up. It pulls back. 99% of the time it's going to pull back before heading higher. It's just how it works, right? And this is where you look for your entry. You always look for it on the pullback. Now, where these come into play is you'll see these wherever, right? So a fair value gap is a sequence of 3 candles. It works on any time frame, whether it's the 1 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute, hourly, daily, weekly, 4 hour, it does not matter. Fair value gaps exist in every single time frame. It is a sequence of 3 candles. This is an example of 3 candles bearish. This is an example of 3 candles bullish. What exactly is a fair value gap? A fair value gap is the middle candle in the sequence, right? Look at this. Let's get out our drawing tool. This is 1. Let's make this black so you guys can see this and understand what I mean. So here's the candle 1, 2, 3. Same thing here. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Candle 1, 2, 3. Candle 1, 2, 3. Let's focus bearish first. In the sequence, the fair value gaps exists in the second candle, the middle candle, and it is the space that is left between the first candle and the last candle, the gap that is left. This. So you take the bottom of this wick to the top of the third candle's wick, and this is the fair value gap. So what is a fair value gap? A fair value gap happens when a move is rapidly or quickly, right? An impulse move. This is what you want. This is when the market's telling you, okay, we are ready to head it in the other direction, or ready to continue in this direction, or even just completely change directions. The market will leave behind things like this, and you will see it everywhere. Everywhere you'll see these fair value gaps because they exist everywhere. A fair value gap is an imbalance in the market, and the market targets these areas of imbalances because there's a void of orders. Think of it like this. The easiest way to think of it is when price moves so quickly down, in this case, bearish. When price moves so quickly down, it can't fill all the orders because price is moving so down. How's it going to fill all the orders, right? So think of it like this. In this red box right here, think of it like, where's the drawing tool? Think of it like there's 100,000 orders. 100,000 unfilled orders sitting here. Okay? 100,000 orders. Price moved down so quickly. None of these orders, people want to go short. They can't because price is moving back so quickly. It creates this void, an imbalance, and the market has to retarget these imbalances before it heads in the direction it wants. Okay? It has to target imbalance. That is what the market moves off of. It targets imbalances. That is the algorithm. It targets unfilled orders. It targets liquidity pools. It targets stop losses, buy stops, all this stuff. But a main one is the imbalances that are left behind after an expansionary move. In this case, we have a bearish move to the downside, right? It happens so quickly. We have a void of contracts here, imbalance, right? What does the market have to do? It leaves behind, like I said, you take a candle in a sequence, 1 candle, 2 candle, 3 candles. It leaves a gap. You take the bottom wick and the top wick. Bottom wick of the first candle, top wick of the third candle, right? You draw out your box, bottom wick to the top of the third candle's wick. This is the imbalance. What does price do? Price has to come back up here, fill these orders before it can move back down. Okay? So there's 100K orders sitting here. Price has to come back up here. All these orders get filled, and then the market can move down. It has to retarget the imbalance. It has to fill that imbalance. That is how the market moves. It targets imbalances. That is how the algorithm is set. And you will see this very, very often. In any time frame this exists. Any single time frame. Every single time frame. This exists. Fair value gaps. Doesn't matter. This can be a daily candle. This can be a daily candle. This can be a daily candle. It does not matter. Hourly, does not matter. It is a void in the market, is an imbalance that the algorithm hunts. It will literally, before it heads down lower, it will head back up here to fill this imbalance and then continue down. This is where I look for my entries in fair value gaps. Now let's go to the other side. Same exact thing for a bullish scenario. Bullish, you have 1, 2, 3 candles in a sequence. You have a void, a gap in between them here. Again, super simple. You take the top of the first, in this case, you take the top of this candle and the bottom of the third candle and you draw it out. This is the void, right? Let me make this a different color so you guys can like really see it. Here's the void. Bottom of the third candle, top of the first. It is literally just a sequence of 3 candles after literally anything. It can be anywhere. You'll see this. It's so easy to spot. You guys will see this literally everywhere. There can be multiple in a sequence. There can be another candle up here, and this can be another fair value gap, right? It can be like this even. All right, pretend this is a candle. It literally can just be like this too, right? Here's another candle. Does not matter. Literally does not matter, guys. Okay, whatever. It doesn't need a top. You guys get the point. Here's another fair value gap. Boom. There's another one. Look, you can have 2 right next to each other. It does not matter. They exist everywhere. So this is just kind of a little example of it, but I want to show you in the charts because it's even easier to see in a chart. But think of it like this. There's a gap here in between the first and third candle of just millions of orders unfilled. What does the market, what does price have to do? If price wants to continue higher, it has to come back down into the imbalance, fill it, and then it can move higher. Right? Price has to fill the imbalance, fill all these orders, come back up. Now, however, it doesn't always fill the entire imbalance. It can go literally touch the very top of it and go. Right? Or most of the time what happens is it fills the consequent approachment, which is the 50% mark. It will fill the 50% mark of the fair value gap. That is the most common thing. That's where I mostly place my orders, but sometimes I'll place my orders at the very top of the box, right? So if I was go long here, this is what it would kind of look like. I don't know why my tool is being so weird. You know, you place your stop, you know, here's your order, your entry is in the middle, and you're targeting the next liquidity, the next drawn liquidity. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It's just a gap and 3 candles. And look, just by looking at this, you can see millions. There's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fair value gaps that are created. This is on the 5 minute. What do you see? Look, here's a fair value gap. Where do you see them? Let me make it clear. Let me make it super clear for you guys. In here, inside of this area, where do you see fair value gaps. There is two. There's two fair value gaps in here. Where do you see them? There's one right here. This is a bearish fair value gap, right? There's one right there. And there's another one right here. And what happens, guys? What happens to price when price comes into this fair value gap and fills it? Where does this go? This is literally like after hours, and it's still working. Where does price go? Let's zoom in really, really close so you guys can really see this. Look, 1 candle, 2 candle, 3 candles. Here's the sequence, right? You take the bottom of this wick, draw your box to the top of this wick. There's the gap. What happens when price taps in perfectly onto the 50% mark of the fair value gap? Price taps in, tanks. Taps in again, tanks. Right? It's very straightforward. Very, very, very straightforward. Fair value gaps exist. Now, however, this is what I want to make the part 2 on, is that fair value gaps don't always work, because there's ones that will and there's ones that won't. How do you know which ones will and how do you know which ones won't? I will talk about that in the next video, because that's very important to know, which is why I want to talk about it right now and get you guys ready for that, because not every fair value gap, as you guys are noticing, is going to work. Like, for example, this is a fair value gap right here. Did it work? No, it didn't. Price ran through it. Price ran through the fair value gap. It did not respect it. If it respected it, it would have came in here, dumped, right? Maybe even came back again, and we would have been seeing a different chart. But we didn't see that. Price came in and just ran through. So that fair value gap was not respected, and I will get into that in part 2 as to what does that mean. Okay, let's look at some bullish ones. This is kind of hard to look at bullish ones today because, I mean, obviously we sold off. So pretty much all bearish fair value gaps would have worked today. But we can look at the trade we took today, actually. Okay, perfect. There was sell side that got swept here. This is why I took the trade for today. But literally, if you just look at this, there's fair value gaps in every single time frame. Big or small, right? Here's a fair value gap right here. Price never came into it. That's okay, right? That's okay, because watch. If we go down to a smaller time frame, now all of a sudden we have many more fair value gaps. And what do you notice? This is a fair value gap right here. Very small. Doesn't matter, small or big. It got filled completely, right? Let's move it so you guys can see it. Ready? Sequence of candles. 1, 2, 3. Here's the top of this candle to the bottom of this one. Draw it out. What happens? We swept sell side. Price moved up. We tapped into this 1 minute fair value gap. Right? Fair value gap. Tapped in. Filled it completely. And it was respected. The fair value gap was respected. Price came into the fair value gap, moved up. And then we took out our internal buy side. Right? Pretty straightforward. This was on Friday. Literally this Friday. It works all the time. You just have to know which ones work and which ones don't. Today's trade was right in here. I believe we took this live. Yeah, we took this one live in the Discord too. I'll have to find it, but literally there's just infinite examples. And this is how I do my daily bias, guys. I look for these imbalances. Like here's literally fair value gap right here. Bearish. You know, once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's just like it exists everywhere. You know, not all of them work, but I'll go over that in the next video on why some work and why some don't. You know, like once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's literally impossible. Look, Another example, guys. In this, actually, this is just easier if I do this. In this, where are all the fair value gaps? Actually, we'll make it a little easier. Right here. We'll just stick to this. All the fair value gaps. Okay. We have one here. This is a bullish fair value gap. However, what happens? It gets ran through. It does not get respected. Okay? We don't want that. What is getting respected? We have another fair value gap here. This one is bearish. Bearish fair value gap. Where's another one? There's many here. In this one sequence, there's so many fair value gaps. Here's another one. Right here. Remember how I said sometimes price will literally just barely tap into the fair value gap before respecting it? It doesn't have to come to the consequent encroachment. Sometimes it just taps the base of it, and that's enough for it. You know, not all the time. Like even this one, it just barely taps it. This one barely taps it, and it heads in a direction. There's multiple fair value. Here's another one. Okay. There's many fair value gaps. There's even a bullish one right here. You know, it's so easy to see, guys. A sequence of 3. Look, this is a clean fair value gap right here. We have 1 candle, 2 candles, 3 candles. Draw it out, the top of the bottom, the top of this candle to the bottom of this candle. Drag it out. There's your bullish fair value gap. Right? Look how many you have. 1, 2, 3, 4. Literally in nothing. And this is on 3-minute, guys. I'm telling you, you'll see it everywhere. And the next video, I really want to get into which ones, why some fair value gaps work and why some don't. Because it's very beneficial that you guys know this. Because not every fair value gap will work. You can't just randomly go long or short once you see a fair value gap. It doesn't work like that. Like, look at this. Here's a fair value gap right here. This one's, there's a fair value gap right there. Let me go long. I'm going to go long. And my stop I'll put, at the bottom of this candle. I'm going to target this high. What happens? You get filled, and then price just dumps on you. But it was a fair value gap. It has to work. It doesn't work all the time, guys. And there's a reason for that. And you'll have to, and I can literally tell you guys in this video why, but I want to make it in a separate video because it's super important. I want to make a part 2 on fair value gaps. Because it's just this is like the key fundamental of your strategy that I use. Like you have to understand fair value gaps. This is like the main component of my strategy. Is these, like, they're so simple, so easy to find, and so useful. But you need to know which ones work, which ones don't. There's bullish fair value gaps, bearish fair value gaps. In the second video, I will get into all of that. But for now, I don't want to overload with all this information, but just know that they're super useful, like literally the main component of my strategy. Not all of them work. You can't just randomly long or short in a fair value gap. It just doesn't work like that. Trust me. When I first found out about these, I was doing the same thing that you guys are probably thinking. Oh, there's a fair value gap. I'm just going to go long, No, it doesn't work like that. You have to add it into confluence with your other confluences. It's just an added layer of confidence. Okay, my strategy is not just fair value gap, enter. No, there's multiple moving parts to it, and you have to use all of them together. It's not just one on their other, one by itself. However, fair value gaps is a main key part of mine. I mean, that's how I use my daily analysis. That's how I do all my stuff. So trust me, guys, this is a super important video. If you don't understand it, it's fine. Just drop comments on the Discord. 100% I'll answer any questions. But like I said, fair value gaps are just a sequence of 3 candles, right? Just a sequence of 3 candles. I'm not going to draw it out. You guys get the point, right? There's literally one right here. 1 candle, 2 candle, 3 candles. This one doesn't work. In the next video, I'll explain why these don't work. But I mean, look at this. 1 candle, 2, 3. Perfect. Here's one literally right there. What happens to price? It respects the fair value gap. Respects it. And just continues to dump. This is how you add confidence in your trades. When you see things that are working, you see a bearish fair value gap working, you say, okay, the draw has to be lower. The draw on liquidity has to be lower. If you see it not being respected, then you have to think, okay, maybe my daily bias is wrong, you know? And you have to be able to do that as a trader. You have to be able to flip your bias, because sometimes you might have a bias going into the morning and then news drops and all of a sudden that liquidity you were looking at already got taken out. Now what? You know, you can't stick to one bias. You can have a daily bias. I post my daily bias every single day. And I'd say 90% of the time, my daily bias is correct. But the other 10%, I have to flip it. I can't just stick to my daily bias just because I want it to be right. You are not right, guys. You will never be right in the market. The market does whatever it wants. No matter how hard you want something to be, it won't be like that. No matter how badly you want to be right, you have to let go of that. You have to let go of that ego. You can't just try to convince yourself that you're right, the market's wrong. It doesn't work like that. The market doesn't care. It's going to do what it's going to do regardless of what you think. If you think it's going to be a bullish day, it doesn't care. It's still going to be bullish or bearish. You can't stick to one bias. That's why I post my daily bias. I'd say 90% of the time, my daily bias is correct. The other 10%, I recognize when I'm wrong, and I flip it. And that's what you guys have to do. You have to let go of that ego. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. What is the market telling you? Listen to the market. It will literally tell you where it's going. It tells you where it's going. You just have to listen to it. This is a super important video. Practice these. Look for these in the market. They exist in every single time frame. It's a fair value gap. It exists everywhere. It's a sequence of 3 candles. 1, 2, 3. Bullish or bearish. Look for them. Practice them. Find them in the market. See which ones. Try to figure out which ones work and why they didn't work. Or which ones work and why they work. Try to figure it out, because I will be posting part 2 tomorrow. I'll post it late tomorrow, so that gives you guys time to backtest. See fair value gaps. Like, really backtest, guys. Like, when I first learned about fair value gaps, I was up until like 4 in the morning. That's when I figured it all out. This is when everything clicked. It just clicked for me. It was like 4 in the morning. And I need you guys to have that. I need you guys to have that click, because this is super important. Fair value gaps is literally life-changing. You need to understand this concept. I will be making a part 2, clearing more stuff up and going into more depth. But I want you guys to try to figure it out yourself a little bit. It's really important that you guys try this. Remember, fair value gap is an imbalance in the market where orders are unfilled. The market has to re-establish itself, move back to this void in these candles, right? The imbalance. It has to hunt this imbalance, fill all these orders, and then continue to move in the direction it wanted. That's what a fair value gap is. It is an imbalance in the market. And guess what, guys? The algorithm hunts imbalances. This is why it is so important. Price always has to rebalance. And 9 out of 10 times, it is to a fair value gap. 9 out of 10 times. And that is pretty good odds. So with that being said, guys, please watch this video, watch it over, watch it once, watch it twice. I will be posting part 2. If you guys have any questions, just put them in the Discord. There's a free chat, there's a premium chat. I don't care which one you put them in, I'll be answering questions regardless. Trust me, guys, fair value gaps, you have to get this down. It's super important. I will be making part 2, going way more in depth into it. This is kind of just a basic overload. I want you guys to see this. Like, you should be able to see it as quick as I can. It's just there. You just see it. There's so many, right? Like, you should just be able to look at the chart and say, oh my god, I see like 10 fair value gaps right now, right? I'm only really showing bearish ones because today was a bearish day. There's not going to be a lot of bullish fair value gaps on a bearish day. That also kind of gives you a little more confluence. If you're bearish on the day and you're not really seeing a lot of bullish fair value gaps, most likely your bias is probably right. It's probably right. You should probably stick to that bias. It's a good teller of how the day is going to look. Which fair value gaps are being respected, which are being even created, and which are actually being disrespected, which are being ran through. And that kind of gives you a confluence of, okay, my bias was right, my bias is wrong. Remember, you can't let your ego get in the way of you making money. Don't do that. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Who cares? If you're right, you're right. Who cares? Get in the market, follow what it's telling you, make your money, get out. No one cares if you're right. No one cares if you're wrong. They only care if you make money. Make your money, get out. No one cares if you're the smartest there. If you think you know everything, it doesn't matter. The market does not care. It will do what it wants. Your job is to follow it. You're not there to predict it. You're not there to always be right. You're just there to follow the market and what it's doing. It will tell you what it's going to do. Your job is just to recognize those signs and apply risk. That's it. So, next video, and very important as well. This one's super important. Please get down for value gaps. Study it, backtest it. Try it out tonight, tomorrow morning. See which ones work, see which ones don't. And then in my next video on fair value gaps, which will be tomorrow, I will be explaining as to why some worked, why some don't work, and everything else with that. So with that will end off this video. Backtest this. Trust me, it will completely change your trading. Next couple of videos, I want to do some more simple videos just because I have been getting some messages from people saying they kind of want to, like, how do I connect brokers? How do I do this? How do I place trades? I do have videos on all that, guys. Please just scroll up in the education channel. There's videos on how to connect brokers. There's videos on how to actually place trades. Please watch those videos. Okay, guys, with that being said, that'll end off this video. Part 2 will be coming out very, very soon. Backtest for value gaps.